Namaskar to everyone. I won't come in way of Swami Sarvapriyananda investigating into happiness. Just say a few words. As Professor rightly pointed out, we all want happiness. Irrespective of our background or station in life, there is no human being, in fact no living being, which does not want happiness. It is inbuilt in life. For instance, no one says that I have not fallen sick for quite some time, let me fall sick. No one says, I have not been cheated, let me get cheated. Or that I have not been humiliated for long, let me get humiliated. Because all these things bring unhappiness. This and many more ways or contexts are there in our life where the question of happiness, unhappiness, life, freedom, joy all come up. Along with happiness, there is also the idea of freedom. Swami Vivekananda speaks about it in the Jnana Yoga lectures in the second volume of his complete works, that along with happiness, there has to be freedom. For instance, some ex-person is given all the material things that he wants or he feels that he wants, and he is given all that and he is kept in the room. That you have all this, in today's language you have all the internet and all the SMS and all the pizzas and whatever you think is covetable. And you are given, but you are also told that you have no freedom to go out of the room. There is no freedom of movement. There is no freedom to do many other things. With all that, he will become very unhappy. So happiness is connected with freedom. Again, is happiness something outside or is it something inside? We are very happy that we have our dear Swami Sarvapriyananda who has come all the way from Belur Mutt to speak to us on this and the various aspects of happiness. He has chosen a beautiful word. The coinage of the today's theme was done by him. Investigation seems to point to as if something is lost or something is hidden or something like, as in the case of a departmental inquiry or a spy or a police officer is investigating, where has happiness gone? We have everything, what we thought was everything we had, and yet there is no happiness. And as the material things increase, there seems to be an inversely proportional increase in unhappiness also, despite all the things that we have. So we are very happy that Maharaj has agreed to come and share his ideas. He is truly Sarvapriya, and many of you must have seen his talks delivered in IIT Kanpur and elsewhere. We, on behalf of VSC, behalf of everyone present here, very heartily welcome you, Maharaj. Thank you for coming here. Namaste.
Thank you, Maharaj. Now I shall take pride to introduce Swami Sarvapriyananda Maharaj. Swami Sarvapriyananda is a young, dynamic monk from the Ramakrishna Mutt. He has served the Ramakrishna mission in various capacities as a Vice Principal of the Deoghar Vidyapeeth Higher Secondary School, as a Principal of the Shikshan Mandir Teachers Training College at Belur Mutt, and as the first Registrar of the Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda University at Belur Mutt. He holds a degree in Business Management from Xavier Institute of Management, Bhubaneswar. And his interest varies from spirituality and philosophy to human resource management and education. Now, without any further delay, I request Swami Sarvapriyananda to deliver the talk on today's topic.
A very good evening to all of you. Namaskar. It's a privilege, a proud privilege for me to be here in this beautiful auditorium with all of you and with such a full audience. I was told that there is a quiz tomorrow, and when is there not a quiz in IIT campuses? But so many of you have turned up. So let me go straight into the subject. Revered monks, respected members of the faculty, guests, and dear students. The subject which I was given the freedom to choose is happiness. And I'm calling it Investigating Happiness Insights from Positive Psychology and Vedanta. Let's start with positive psychology. There's been a very interesting development in the field of psychology over the last 20 years. Those who study psychology, they know about this. It's called positive psychology. What happened was, around 20 years back, certain psychologists working in USA, they felt that psychology has for too long been concerned with the weaknesses, with the illnesses of the human organism, of the human mind. Why not concentrate on the strengths, on the positive aspects of human life? And they actually started doing that. One of the psychologists who did this, one of the pioneers in this field of positive psychology, is Professor Seligman, whose work I shall, Professor Seligman, whose work I shall talk about in more detail today as an introduction to the subject. In the entire range of positive psychology, one of the most important areas is human happiness. What is happiness, and how are people happy? And what makes people happy, what makes people unhappy? This is an area of investigation. This positive psychology must be distinguished from this entire range of self-help books. You know, in any good bookstore you go to, there'll be the entire shelf or shelves full of books on being confident, on being, getting friends, and so on and so forth. So many things. Now, this area, though some of them may be very good, but that's very different from positive psychology, because positive psychology is an academic discipline. It's actually taught in universities, and it's a very rigorous discipline. It's not just anecdotal, it's not just somebody who writes down his own theories. Professor Seligman, he's very humorous. I saw one of his talks he's on TED Talks. So one of his talks, he says that he was interviewed by CNN once, and they asked him, Professor Seligman, what is the state of psychology today? And they said that you get only one word because it's CNN and you don't get much time. You're a professor, you can't give a long lecture. So he said, all right, one word. Professor Seligman, what is the state of psychology today? And he said, good. The interviewer said, cut, no, you don't understand. You have to explain a little more. You get two words. So Professor Seligman, what is the state of psychology today? He said, not good. He was taken aback. People were taken aback. You're saying good and now not good. Little more. Can you expand a little more? And you get three words this time. Professor Seligman, what is the state of psychology today? And he says, not good enough. So good, not good, and not good enough. And he says his whole life's work is how to make psychology good enough. And that is by this new field of positive psychology. One of the areas, the main area which he has worked on is human happiness. And there are a number of books. He has his own website and all that. It's there. I'll just summarize in a few minutes the state of work which he has done so far in human happiness. Basically what he says is, I have to get the hang of this. It's the first time I am using this kind of tablet for writing. And if I get into trouble, I'm going to yell for help, and you have to come out and up here and help me. So he says, human happiness, the first idea we get about happiness, H standing for happiness, is what he calls pleasure, P. Pleasure is the happiness when you get when you eat your favorite brand of ice cream, or when you go and watch a movie. Our first reaction when we want to be happy is some kind of pleasure, going for a party or whatever. whatever, listening to music, any kind of pleasure. It can be from a very gross kind of pleasure, from eating sweets or rasgulla, to a very refined kind of pleasure when you're listening to classical music or something. So pleasure is the first component. And he says there are problems with this. Remember, we're talking about a psychologist working in the United States in the 20th and 21st centuries, not about Buddha or Shankara or anybody. But the things he says are very interesting. He says our investigations show this pleasure component has severe problems. One problem is what he calls satiety. You get used to it very soon. You're taking an ice cream, you like ice cream gives you pleasure. So the first cone of ice cream you take, it gives you a lot of pleasure. Second one, not so much. And third one, maybe not at all. If you at all take a third one, and you wouldn't even take a fourth one, even if it is given to you free or forced upon you. What has happened is something very well known to students of economics. They call it diminishing marginal utility. That the utility satisfaction you derive from one unit of consumption is high, the next unit gives less satisfaction, and the units after that give progressively lesser and lesser satisfaction till it becomes zero. And if you take more than that, after that it becomes negative. Actually it starts, you might even throw up if you take more ice cream after that. So pleasure, the first thing is you get used to it, and then you need more of it later on, or a different variety of it. Second thing he says, it is transient. The ice cream is nice as long as it lasts, and then it's gone. And you might end up with stomach trouble or something, but that's all. Now, pleasure is transient. And there are other problems also. You have to work so hard to get that. And once you get it, very soon it's gone again. It's habit forming. Many kinds of things which give pleasure are habit forming. You need more and more and more of that later on. So pleasure is one component of happiness according to Seligman, and this is what they have found, but it has several problems. He says there's another kind of happiness, another component of happiness which he calls engagement. He calls it E for engagement. Engagement is the happiness, the satisfaction that you get out of commitment to some activity. The difference, I'll illustrate the difference for you. For example, you watch cricket on TV. Suppose you like cricket and you watch a nice cricket match on TV and you enjoy it. That is pleasure. But if you play cricket, you go out on the field and you join a cricket team and you play cricket, that gives a different kind of happiness. Maybe the game that you play there is nowhere near the quality of the game you are watching on TV. But still, the kind of satisfaction you get out of that engagement. Or for example, you're listening to music, that gives you pleasure. You actually learn to play a musical instrument, and then you train yourself up to it, and you do play that musical instrument. Maybe nowhere as well as the artist who is playing on TV or radio, but still, the pleasure that you get, the happiness, the satisfaction that you get from that engagement, that is more than pleasure. One of the other psychologists working in this field, his name is unpronounceable. It's Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. He works in a field called flow, and that is related to this engagement. He says one of the greatest sources of happiness human beings have discovered is to be completely focused in a challenging activity. You have an activity which you can do if you want to do it, but it will push you to the limits. You know how to do it. Say for example playing a musical instrument. You know how to do it. To do it really well you have to concentrate. You have to get down and focus. And it pushes you to the limit. You get lost in that activity. A brain surgeon, for example, a neurosurgeon, working on an operation for 6, 7, 8 hours. And when he's asked, sir, don't you get tired? He says, I don't even remember I'm doing it. I'm so focused, absorbed in it. And he gets tremendous satisfaction and joy out of it. That Csikszentmihalyi calls flow. Where the mind is completely focused on a challenging activity. It could be playing a musical instrument, it could be operating in an operation theater, it could be studying. Why I'm mentioning this is, in an institute like this, where there are a lot of very good scholars, you have all experienced this flow. possibly in the field of your studies. Remember when you liked a particular subject and you spent hours and hours and hours working at it. It was not easy, but it was doable, but you had to put forward that effort. And imagine and remember the satisfaction. You may be tired after that, but the kind of satisfaction, the kind of enrichment you get after that, after finishing that kind of work. So the difference is this. You sit in front of a TV, watch a film or something, or some kind of program, mostly mindless these days, and you watch that for a couple of hours and contrast this with an engagement, with an activity where you're studying maybe your favorite subject, maybe mathematics or something, seriously working at it for 2 hours. And at the end of this experience, when you compare these two experiences, in one case, you find yourself at a certain lower level of mental organization after watching TV, and after doing your mathematics or whatever you like seriously for 2 hours, you find yourself a more integrated, more sort of enriched internally by doing that activity. So that is engagement. It can come in teaching, it can come in business, it can come in religion, wherever you find joy in working hard at something. It can come in a hobby also. So that is engagement. And according to Seligman, the satisfaction, the happiness that we get out of engagement is far more than the satisfaction you get out of pleasure. And this is not only more, it also lasts longer. It also enriches you. Then he says, there is a third kind of happiness, third component, which is even more powerful, longer lasting, more satisfying than engagement. And he calls it the meaningful life, meaning in life, M. How does he define meaning in life? He says, using one's capacities to do something which is larger than oneself. When you reach out to, you see, even pleasure and engagement, even engagement, both of them are limited to one's own self usually. But in meaning, in leading a meaningful life, a purposeful life, you reach out to more than yourself. Professor Seligman, he gives of an example, an experiment which he tried with students in his class. It's a very interesting experiment. He said one day, instead of a class, he said, today we are going to watch a movie. Of course, the students were very happy. This is the kind of class we like. And so they all went up to the movie hall and watched a movie. But after that, he gave them a questionnaire. How did you like, how would you rate your happiness from this movie? And 0 to 5 something. They did that. Next week again he said, today we won't have the class, but today we are going out to this poor neighborhood where there are poor kids. I've already talked to them. We are going to take clothes and toys and something and go and distribute that, and we'd spend the afternoon with those poor kids from poor families. And they did that. After they came back, again a questionnaire, how do you rate your satisfaction, your happiness, 0 to 5? That was over. 6 months later, suddenly in the class one day, Professor Seligman, he handed out questionnaires to all the students and he said, remember 6 months ago, 1 week we went to a movie? Rate your happiness now when you think about that movie. And 6 months ago, next week we went to that place and where we helped out poor kids and spent an afternoon making friends, helping them out. Rate your happiness now from that experience. And as you can guess, many of the children, many of the boys and girls, they couldn't even remember the name of the movie. And they said, we hardly feel anything now. That 6 weeks ago or 6 months ago we had gone to see a movie. Hardly anything is there. But, and you can imagine, 6 months ago we had gone to this place where we interacted with children from poor families. We made friends with them. We distributed toys and they were so happy. And today when I think about it, I still feel the same happiness which I felt on that day. So it's in a very vivid way he demonstrates that this meaningful activity, it gives a great deal of happiness, more than engagement and certainly more than pleasure, and it gives lasting happiness. So, according to Professor Seligman, what he has found so far is that happiness has 3 components: pleasure, engagement, and meaning. And these are not equal components. He says pleasure gives a very little amount of happiness, engagement accounts for much more happiness, and meaning, a meaningful life, accounts for much more than engagement. The implication being, if you want more happiness in life, the first thing that, especially college boys and girls, teenagers, first thing that they do when they want to be happy is they turn to pleasure, partying. Not in IIT, I know. You hardly have any time for partying. But yes, maybe many boys and girls of your age are doing that. And Seligman says it's a mistake. You will not be happy that way. It will pass very quickly and it will be frustrating. It's much more paying to find happiness in your work. For you it is study and research. And even more paying, with lasting implications, if you can find a high purpose in life, if you can find some kind of deep meaning in life. I think it was last month that you were host to Vinayak Lohani. Some of you may have met him. He's like you. He has a degree from IIT Kharagpur and a degree from MBA from IIM Calcutta. But what he does now is, he has this big organization called Parivar, where 800 kids, he started with 3 orphans, taken straight from the street. Now he has got 800 orphan boys and girls, and he takes care of them. He said, I'm their mother and father. I'm not doing social service, but he says it's a joy for him. Now imagine, he has found happiness through meaning in life, through some kind of meaning and purpose, a higher purpose and meaning in life. Before I go on to the next part, we have got this equation, happiness is equal to pleasure plus engagement plus meaning. There are certain set of terms with which we are all familiar in India. If you ask, what is the purpose of human life? The terms you come across in Sanskrit, and it's common across India. They say dharma, artha, kama, moksha. 4 aims of human life. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. One day when I was reading positive psychology, one day it suddenly struck me. Kama is sensual pleasure. Pleasure in the rupa, rasa, gandha, sparsha, in all kinds of senses. The pleasure that you get from the world, that is kama. And you can see easily how you can map it. Can't you map it like this? You can. Artha. Artha stands literally for money, but it also stands for achievement, power, status, any kind of achievement which you have in this world. That would be artha. And you can sort of map it to engagement also. Artha. Not perfectly. Kama and pleasure map very easily. Artha and engagement would be a good fit. And I'm stretching it now a little bit, but dharma is a word which has enormous number of connotations. If you take a Sanskrit dictionary, you will get pages and pages of meaning for dharma. But one of the meanings would be doing good to others, decency, morality, and even religion also. So meaning I would like to link with dharma. Now you can see a mapping. Kama would be pleasure, engagement would be artha, and meaning we can stretch it sort of, dharma in that sense, or you can reinterpret dharma as meaning. In fact, these words actually are a little wider than pleasure, engagement and meaning. We can take it in a narrower, in a more strict sense. And you can see how built into the very understanding of human life in Indian tradition is this idea that if you want happiness in life, these are called purusharthas. Purushartha meaning goals of human life. Not in the sense that you should chase these, in the sense that it is a statement of fact. People want this. If you see what people want, you can fit it into these 3 categories. And this is what gives happiness in human life. Another interesting thing is, when we say dharma, artha, kama, moksha, look at the order which we use. All throughout India, we always use dharma, artha, kama and moksha. We never say kama, artha and dharma. Meaning thereby, dharma is sort of the basis based on which you have kama and artha. So you chase pleasure and achievement, engagement in life on the basis of a meaningful life, on the basis of a moral life. You see, the problem today is People want money, they want pleasure in life, and you find this on campuses all over the country. What do you want? A multinational job and a very happy life, meaning thereby a kind of pleasurable life. That's perfectly all right. Our traditions tell us this, what you want is artha and kama. But the idea is to root it in dharma. On the basis of dharma, you seek artha and kama. So this is just one insight I wanted to share with you. Now, let's go ahead. In the time remaining to me, I shall go into Vedanta. Because Vedanta, when Vedanta looks at this entire structure, pleasure, engagement, meaning, kama, artha, dharma, Vedanta is very fond of throwing bombshells. So first thing they tell us is, it's wrong. They say, what you have understood till now, all these wonderful ideas, you are making a terrible mistake. You have missed out the most important fact. And what is that? Let's go into this Vedantic idea. Since it's my favorite subject, I make the mistake sometimes of packing too much into one lecture. So I'll ask for your attention as I go very quickly through several ideas with you. Because the Vivekananda Study Circle has organized a number of talks on Vedanta, so you are more or less familiar with the paradigm of the Atman, the self which transcends body and mind. I will not try to prove that there is such a self. The normal procedure in Vedanta is, first they will try to demonstrate that beyond this body and mind which are evident, there is an existence which transcends body and mind. They'll first try to establish that. I am not going to do that now, because I don't have the time for that. I'm going on to another aspect of this self. See, what Vedanta says is, here is the body, pardon my drawing, and here is the mind. So here's the body, and here is the mind. This is an analytic diagram in the sense that I'm not saying there's a mind apart from the body. I'm just putting them apart, taking it apart so I can convey certain idea to you. So this is what is our idea of ourselves. So this is body and mind, and this is who I am. This is I. This is what I think of myself. I am this body and this mind. And what do I want? I want something nice in the world outside. That makes me happy. Here is an ice cream cone. Okay, that makes me happy. When I have this, so I feel happy. This is smileys, which are very common these days. So I get this happiness. I understand happiness is in the mind, but this ice cream cone makes me happy. What Vedanta tells you is this. Says that, first of all, you are neither this body, you are neither the mind, but you are something quite apart from the body and mind, which we'll call the Atman. Usually it's supposed to be, the term used is Satchidananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. Sat, Chit, Ananda, existence, consciousness, bliss. I am not going to look at the existence and consciousness part of it, Sat and Chit. I'm just going to look at the Ananda part of it. So let's call this Ananda. Ananda means happiness actually. And according to Vedanta, yourself is happiness. Not that, Swami Vivekananda says, the Atman, not that it exists, it is existence. Not that it is conscious, not that it knows, it is knowledge or consciousness. Not that it is happy, it is happiness. That's a very strange way of putting it, but what does it mean? That's what we'll see today. What Vedanta tells us is, happiness is not in the ice cream, it's not in the body, it's not even in the mind. What happens is, the Ananda of the self which is Ananda, the Atman, that gets reflected in the mind as happiness. There's a story, a bit gruesome, but it's a very interesting story nevertheless. A dog was very fond of a bone, and it had buried the bone. Once in a while it would dig out the bone, a dry bone, and it would chew the bone. And when it chewed the bone, its gum would get cut by the sharp edges of the bone and little blood would flow. And it would taste its own blood and think that it's such a tasty bone, you know. And then it will bury that bone again and go off. And once in a while it will come back and do that. Now we find that funny, but according to Vedanta, that's all that we are doing. That's all that we are doing when we are searching for happiness. The happiness which is your own self, the Ananda Swarupa, the Atman, that happiness, we try to experience it in our own minds with the help of external objects. What is the role that the external object plays? We have desires. So I have desires. Desires are like waves in the mind which come, and because of these waves in the mind, what happens is, because of these waves in the mind, what happens is, my happiness is obscured. But when I get the object, I want an ice cream, so the moment I get the ice cream, what happens is, then these waves are wiped out, and in the mind, again, I get the happiness, which is my true nature. So the idea is, I have desire for an ice cream, for example, and when the desire arises in the mind, the natural happiness of the self, the Ananda Swarupa, which is reflected in the mind, that gets obscured. And I struggle to get that ice cream. I go and purchase that ice cream. I get some joy at seeing the ice cream. I get joy in holding the ice cream. And I get a sense of joy in licking and tasting and eating that ice cream. As a result of that, as a result of getting that ice cream and enjoying that ice cream, the waves in the mind of desire which were there, they subside. And the natural Ananda of the self shines forth again in the mind. And the mistake I make is, just like that dog, the bone gives me happiness. No. I feel the ice cream gives me happiness. No. It is my own self which is reflected in the mind which is giving me happiness. So it is not the object outside. Vedanta tells you it's not the object outside. And we are making a mistake when we say the object outside gives me happiness. There is a whole section in one of our ancient Upanishads called the Taittiriya Upanishad. Those of you are interested, you can look it up. In the Taittiriya Upanishad, chapter 2, and I think section 8 probably, Ashtamanuvaka. There is a whole section which is called Ananda Mimamsa. Ananda Mimamsa literally means investigation of happiness. The subject which I have chosen for this lecture, the meaning of Ananda Mimamsa is exactly that, investigation of Ananda, investigation of happiness. And there, something very interesting happens. They say, let's consider happiness. And what they do is, when you investigate something in a scientific way, what do? You measure. You start measuring. So let's measure happiness. Modern economists have been trying to do that with their utility curves and so on and so forth. Thousands of years ago, these people who did Ananda Mimamsa and the Taittiriya Upanishad, they said, let's measure happiness. And to measure anything, you need a unit. So let's have let's say, what will be 1 unit of happiness? And they said, what could be the maximum possible happiness a human being can have, a person can wish for in the world? And they say that, first of all, first condition, Yuva Syat, has to be young. I'm sorry for all old people, and I'm also in that group, but you are still in that category. So Yuva Syat. Unfortunately, this is a fact that youth is a factor in happiness. So Yuva Syat, first of all, it must be young. And he says, Adhyayaka, must be learned, must be in IIT, so that you fulfill the second condition also. So Adhyayaka. And they say that Sadhu Syat, sadhu in the sense, must be a good person. You look at the understanding, a person who is evil, person who is mischievous, actually cannot be happy. So a person who is young, very learned, and good, has noble intentions. And what else? Health is required. Ashishta, Dririshta, Balishta. Must be strong, must be capable of enjoying. His mind and body and sense organs must be capable of enjoying the world. You want idli and dosa and ice cream, you must be capable of digesting it. You can't end up with a runny stomach within a couple of hours. So you should be able to fire away at random whatever good food comes. Ashishta, Dririshta, Balishta, that's the commentators say, able to enjoy a lot. Such a person And not enough. One more thing is required. He says, Tasya Prithivi, Iyam Prithivi Vittasya Purna Syat. Let the entire world, the wealth of the world be at the disposal of this young person. You will get the wealth of the world, but the thing is, you have to work 30 or 40 years, and by the time you get it, you're no longer young. So, at the very beginning, if you get all that, highly educated, young, extremely well-built and strong and energetic, and with all the wealth of the world at his or her disposal. Sounds nice, and the Taittiriya Upanishad says, this is Eka Manushananda. Let this be one unit of happiness. Let this be one unit of happiness. And then they say, is anything more possible? We can't think of anything more. They say, they have a very interesting way of looking at it. They say that for enjoying life, you need three things. You need sharira, body, vishaya, object of enjoyment, and loka, environment. You need a good body, a physically good, mentally sensitive, well-trained. You need good things to enjoy. Very nice ice cream should be there. And not only that, the environment counts. The ice cream served on the roadside and the ice cream served in a 5-star hotel, that's why they charge you 20 times more in a 5-star hotel, because they're actually providing a loka, an environment which is superior to your loka outside. So all three together are necessary for enjoyment. And the Taittiriya Upanishad says at that point, we have conceptions of higher lokas. So after this human birth, you can go to their different lokas, Gandharva loka, Deva loka, and so on and so forth. Many worlds they talk about. You may or may not believe in all that, but the point they want to make is, you get better bodies, better vishayas, and better lokas, and your enjoyment increases. They say that when you go to Gandharva loka, 100 times, Shatam Manushananda, 100 times of what you get as the one unit of human happiness, you can get that. And so on. Now, the point they make is, there are these two tracks. One track is track 1, and then there is track 2. One track is where you get that one Manushananda. This is Manushananda. And when you go to a higher loka, that's after death, it's always post-mortem, so you get 100 times of that. And you can go to even higher lokas as you go on. 100 times of that keeps on increasing. And finally, the highest they can think of is, they say Brahma, the highest deity they can conceive of. I calculated actually, if you keep on multiplying by 100 times, I come to the final figure I got was 10 to the power 20. 10 to the power 20 of what? This one Manushananda, which is incredible by any standards. So 10 to the power 20 of that you can aspire for with better bodies, better vishayas, and better lokas. And now the point is this, what we saw a little earlier. You see, some wise person said, instead of looking for better ice creams and better bodies and better lokas, if Ananda it's my own Ananda, I myself am shining in the mind, and that's the joy I'm experiencing. Why do I need this external paraphernalia? If I give up, the problem is the desire for that. Desire for the ice cream which is obstructing my Ananda. Now, instead of working for that ice cream, why don't I let go of the desire which is in the mind? If I let go of that desire, I don't need that ice cream. Automatically the Ananda should, theoretically, manifest itself in my mind. And so, they say there is this second track, track 2. They say a person who is Shrotriya, this is a technical term for a person who is convinced of the Vedantic truth, that I am not the body, I am not the mind, I am consciousness, existence, bliss. You know, in Shankaracharya's famous hymn, where he says, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham, but remember how he starts off. He starts off by saying, Manobuddhi Ahankara Chittani Naham. I am not the mind, I am not the physical body, I am certainly not the ice cream outside, and I am the witness consciousness behind this body and mind. So this person, on the basis of this Vedantic truth, what he is akamahata. He gives up Akamahata means not literally, not destroyed by desire. So not limited by desire. This person gives up the desire for the ice cream or whatever. And the promise is he or she will get the same ananda here. Not only that, he says in this very human life, you don't have to die and go to higher locus to get that ananda. And depending on your commitment to Vedanta and giving up the desires, you can get the same ananda even up to 10 to the power 20 in this very life. The Vedantic promise is, if you have a clear conviction of the Vedantic truth that I am not the body and mind, I am Ananda Swarupa, and I let go of this external desires which I am trying to get for getting Ananda in my mind, if I let go of that, that Ananda will manifest itself. To the extent that I can let go of this. Shankaracharya in his commentary says, the variable factor is this. Vedantic conviction is a fixed factor, and this factor is, we call it X and Y. X is fixed and Y keeps on varying. The more you are akamahata, the more you let go of petty desires in the world, the more joy you get. This is the track 2. The track 1 is the person who tries to get pleasure in the world or in the next world and gets happiness. They admit it, you do get happiness. But all the problems associated with it are there. It will be transient, it will be habit forming, it will lead to satiety, you will want more and more of it, and it goes on and on. Whereas this one is lasting, it's more satisfying, and it's a kind of pure joy which wells up from the spirit within. This is the difference. You know, I'll do something here which is not strictly Vedantic, not strictly positive psychology also. A few years ago, I had a chance to listen to a lecture on string theory. I was in the university, so this professor had come, he was giving a talk on string theory, and I was the only non-PhD in the room. So when the chai wala entered with chai cups, I felt a kind of brotherhood, you know, so everybody else is a PhD. And that was the only lecture where I did not understand the whole life. I've never attended such a lecture. You know, in the first sentence itself, I did not understand. So later I was telling one Swami who is a mathematician. He got the Bhatnagar Award last year. Brilliant Swami. I said that, Swamiji, I couldn't understand a single word of this lecture. Then he told me that it is well known in research circles that every lecture has 4 parts. First part is the research student understands, his guide understands, audience also, specialized audience, they understand. The second part of the lecture, the student understands and the guide understands, but the audience doesn't understand what he's talking about. Third part of the lecture, the guide doesn't understand, the student only understands. And the last part of the lecture, student also does not understand what he's talking about. So, now, I am going to do a little bit of that. Last part of the lecture is that how do we relate that engagement, meaning and pleasure to this idea, you know, that the second track, track 2, Shrotriya Nakamahata. I think one way would be, if this person is convinced that I am not the body and the mind, I am consciousness, I am bliss, I don't want things for my own happiness, then what does he do? He or she, what does he do with his life? He's not chasing things for his own happiness. Swami Vivekananda says, after realizing God or after realizing the Atman, what you do is lead a life of blessedness and usefulness. Look at the words, blessedness and usefulness. You are useful to others. Swami Ranganathanji used to say, what is spirituality? When I close my eyes, I find joy within. You see, ananda within. When I open my eyes, my attitude is, what can I do for you? It's just the reverse of our usual predicament. Most people say, Swamiji, when I close my eyes, I find all kinds of ashanti within. Especially when I sit down to meditate, no peace, let alone joy, no peace within. And when I open my eyes, what can I get from you? You reverse this. This is spirituality. You put it together, the idea of pleasure, engagement and meaning, especially a meaningful life, a purposeful life, with engagement, with focus and with concentration. And this idea that I don't want anything from it. My joy is within. I let go of this personal desire to get things from the world. And Swami Vivekananda says, you keep on giving. Don't look back and calculate and see what you have given. If the moment you look back, he says the ocean becomes a drop. You keep on giving. Now, how can you keep on giving? It's not at all easy. It's not at all easy. The reason why we can't keep on giving, reason why we do not like to lead a life of, helpfulness and blessedness and so on and so forth, we have a suspicion we are going to be unhappy. It's going to be very difficult. So, that's why we don't want to do that. We would rather have our little pleasures and our targets of this job, that job, a pay packet and all that, and we feel that's going to make us happy. Though both positive psychology and Vedanta tell us that road leads only to frustration. At one level or the other, you're going to learn that is not going to make you happy. Persons like Vinayak Lohani, and there are others I met. A gentleman I met, he lives in Chennai itself. He gave up a lucrative corporate career to start a restaurant where he would feed, the profits would be used for feeding poor and hungry people in the streets of Chennai. I met another person who gave up a very lucrative corporate career to collect old clothes and give it to people who do not have clothes. I met another person, you may have heard about him, he is in Bihar. He could not study, higher studies he could not pursue because of poverty. But what he does is he runs this coaching school free of charge, and where boys and girls, he trains them up to get into IIT. There's some Super 30 or something. I met this gentleman. Now all of these, I'll tell you one interesting thing. The general idea about all these people, which people have in general, is that, oh, they are good, they are self-sacrificed, they have given up so much to do good to others. And if you ask any one of them, I've asked them actually, they say just the opposite. They say, we don't feel we have sacrificed anything. If anything, we are much happier now than we were earlier. You see how it matches with this idea of a meaningful life. The idea of that if I give up the pursuit of external pleasure, I get more happiness. None of them, including Vinayak Lohani and others, none of them, I asked them, do you think you have given up a lot? No. If you tell us now to pursue that, I will not pursue that kind of a worldly goal now. Because I don't want it anymore. It is not pleasing to me, it does not make me happy. This makes me happy. Now it shows happiness does not consist in acquisition, it does not consist in sense pleasure, rather it comes from a widening of the self. When the mind is calm and the mind is focused, this is what happens. When this mind, when it becomes calm and focused, the word for that in Sanskrit is sattva. And in Gita they say when the mind is sattvic, it's actually the self, the Ananda Swarupa shines forth there. And that's why we get joy. Automatically joy wells up. How are monks happy? Have you ever thought of that? A monk, a sannyasi is somebody, I used to think of that when I was in school, in college. Somebody who does not have a family or children, or who does not have a bank balance, does not have a job, does not have a status in society as a particular, this rank or that, then how are they happy? And they are happy. I am in a monastic order for the last 20 years, I can tell you. They are very happy, very naturally happy. It is a proof of the idea, this second track 2, that true joy is within. It manifests when you let go of the external world, but this letting go should be a genuine letting go, based on a Vedantic conviction. It should not be a suppression of desire. The danger in monastic life is, if you do not genuinely let go, then it leads to suppression, and then it leads to problems. So if you genuinely let go, one sign is that automatically happiness would be there. In a little bit of time remaining to me, how much, do I have a few minutes? 5 minutes? I'll just leave you with something to think about, a little bit of logic, Vedantic logic, which you find in a book called Panchadashi. In chapter 1, verses 8 and 9. Verses 8 and 9. What are they trying to prove? All of this which I said there, they're trying to use a certain kind of reasoning to show that real happiness is within. The self which is within is happiness itself. Please follow the steps. I'll tell you the steps. I won't go into the Sanskrit right now. The steps are like this. We love things which give us happiness. A thing which gives me happiness, I love that. A person who gives me happiness, I love that person. A place or a situation which gives me happiness, I love that. So things which give happiness are loved. They are loved because they give happiness. Step 1. Step 2. When a thing ceases to give happiness, I cease to love it. The object or the person or the place, if it does not make me happy anymore, I stop loving it. I don't want it anymore. And that's what we are doing all the time. That which gives me happiness, I love that. That which gives happiness to the self, I love that. That which stops giving happiness to the self, I reject it. I don't want it anymore. Now this sounds very selfish, but it's not selfish. It operates for the selfish person and for the unselfish person also. This Vinayak Lohani, once some students asked him, how did you decide upon this wonderful thing you are doing, looking after orphan children? And you know what he said? He said, I did not decide to look after orphan children. What I did was, I did not know what to do with my life, so I started thinking what I will not do with my life. That's an easier decision to make. So will I be a corporate executive, will I do this or will I do that? He began to cut it out. Now see, here's a person you would consider to be very unselfish. But the procedure he's applying is, that which does not make me happy, I will not do. So the things which he leaves out are things which are not making him happy. And thing which makes him happy, he does that. So the rule holds for both selfish people and unselfish people. That which makes me happy, I will hold on to it. That which does not make me happy, I'll let go of it. Step 2. Step 3. The self, myself, is the only thing that I never want to let go. The Sanskrit is Mana bhuvam bhuyasam. I never think that I shall not be. Let me be finished. Let me exist. This is what people always think. Immediate question would be, what about people who commit suicide? What about people who commit suicide? The answer is, such people who want to commit suicide, they have problems either with the world outside, something is wrong with the ice cream, or they have problems with the body, something's wrong with my body, or they have problems in the mind. Any one of these problems. And that's what they're trying to get rid of when they commit suicide. A person who commits suicide because he cannot pay off his loan, it has happened. Commits suicide, he has not been able to pay off his loan. You offer to pay off the loan to that person, he will not commit suicide. So it's a problem. It's a problem with the world, with the body or the mind. It's never a problem with the self. So the point they make is, that which third point is, self we never want to get rid of. Now put these 3 points together. First point is, that which makes me happy, I love that. So that which I love, I love it because it makes me happy. That which I love, I will want to keep. If I don't love it, I will not want to keep it. We get rid of it very soon. Persons, things. Third point, we never want to get rid of the self. Now put them together, what do you get? You get, the self is something you don't want to get rid of. Things which you love, you never want to get rid of. And things which you love are things which give you happiness. Self is something I never want to get rid of. Therefore self is something that I always love. And if I always love something, it means it always gives me happiness. Logically, therefore, they say the self is something, self meaning not the limited body and mind. The consciousness behind the Ananda Swarupa is something that permanently gives me happiness. It's a permanent, unchanging source of happiness. Number 1, this is one set of arguments. This is the 8th verse. And the 9th verse says, it sets out to prove it is the highest source of happiness. What it says is, Tat prematmatham anyatra. All things I love because they make me happy. Even the most unselfish person, he loves being unselfish because it gives him joy. That's what I told you when I asked so many unselfish people. They said it gives me joy, that's why I love doing these things. So, all love in external things is because it makes me happy. And maevam, he says, maevam anyartham atmanaha. Never is it that the self is loved for something else. Other things are loved for the self because they make the self happy. Self is never loved for some other thing. So, what gives you maximum happiness, that you love that most. Other things are loved for the sake of that. The self gives you maximum happiness. There is no case where you love the self for something else. And in every case you love other things for the sake of the self. The logic is, the conclusion would be, the self is the one which gives you maximum happiness. You put these two verses together, what they are trying to prove is that self is a source of unchanging happiness, and so self is the source of maximum happiness. It is a source of all happiness. I think I'll stop here and take questions. I've run out of time also. My students often tell me, there's an art of communicating. When we learned communications long ago, our teacher told us, when you start, there's an art of starting a talk, and there's an art of ending a talk. And my students often tell me that you have learned the first one very, very nicely. The second one you don't, you don't feel like stopping, go on and on. So I'll stop. I'll take questions if there's time for questions. Thank you very much. Thank you.
The floor is now open for questions. So if anyone has any question, please.
You said we should not suppress the desire. We should genuinely let go of it. So
yes.
how does one do that?
One does that on the basis of this understanding. You see, I have given you a number of ideas today. One idea is the dog and the bone and the blood which comes out of its own gum, and it gets joy out of that. Now, how do you propose to teach the dog to let go of the bone? First of all, an understanding must come that in my happiness, the bone is no factor at all. In my happiness, the ice cream is no factor at all. This is a big thing which has to be understood first, and then it has to be experienced. If you stay without that, if you really can genuinely stay, you understand this, you realize that the ice cream is just helping me to calm the desire in my mind, which is obstructing my natural happiness. Happiness which is natural to myself. This understanding is useful. Now, just the understanding by itself does not work, because we are like addicts, so we have gotten used to sense pleasures and things outside. So maybe that's why in a spiritual practice there is a whole program where you first of all step back, a little amount of detachment, a little amount of discipline in life is good for giving you the space for this understanding. Otherwise, when you're in the middle of say in an ice cream parlor, you're sitting in an ice cream parlor and you think I can do without an ice cream. It's not easy to do that. You need to stay away from the ice cream parlor for a little bit, work it out within yourself, and you'll find it becomes easier. And one more thing. The ananda that you get with the help of the ice cream, that there's a term for that. It is called Vishaya Ananda. This track 1, where you get things from the world, joy from the world outside, Sri Ramakrishna used to call it Vishaya Ananda. Vishaya Ananda means Ananda, the joy you get with the help of the objects in the world outside. And he says you replace it with the spiritual path, where you give up the world outside and you still get that joy much more easily, much more lasting. And the term Sri Ramakrishna used was Bhajana Ananda. Bhajan Ananda. The Ananda, bhajan literally does not mean singing, it means spiritual practice. Meditation, service to others, devotional practices. These give a lot of joy. Much more joy, in fact, than the joy you get from calm or from desire, satisfying desires outside. So, twofold. First of all, most important, the understanding is that when I'm giving up the object, I'm not giving up happiness. And second is a set of replacements for that Vishayananda. Replacement would be Bhajanananda, service to others. And here it ties in very well with that meaningful life, where you work for something greater than yourself, something larger than the self. That gives a lot of happiness. Swami Vivekananda says, giving is more paying, but it takes a long time to understand this. We think it is more advantageous to acquire. And it takes a long time to understand that I am not happy by acquiring. Swami Vivekananda says that you actually can be much more happy by giving. Some people say that, what can I give? I don't have anything to give. I'm acquiring so that I can give. But that doesn't normally work. This Vinayak Lohani, for example, he told me how he started. He didn't think about resources or anything. He just started. So when you give, you just start. That gives you happiness. You are replacing Vishayananda with Bhajanananda. Yes. Questions? Yeah.
Good evening, Maharaj, and pranams to you. Actually, I learned that you said if there is a good balance between skill and challenge,
Yes.
then the flow will come and one person will be happy.
Yeah.
But suppose there is some work there, we don't need much skill. For example, I take cleaning vessel. So, like what happens when it is the regular vessel which is there in the basin and I have to go and clean it,
Yeah.
I really don't feel anything good about it.
Yes.
But when it is the same thing, the vessel, cleaning vessel, but if it is puja room vessel,
Yes.
I have interest to do that. And moreover, when I go to visit some mart and there, if I get little chance to do some work for cleaning or the same vessel, I really feel so much joy. So why this difference?
Yes, I think the answer is there in your question itself, very nicely put. Please sit. What you're doing is a kind of work which is very boring, mechanical, but if you associate meaning with it, I am doing it for the Lord in the temple, then the same act of sweeping, the same act of cleaning the vessels gets invested with meaning, and that gives much more happiness. And that's why we want to do that kind of work. It is said that in every human being, there are three streams. There are three streams. They call it the Jnana Dhara, Karma Dhara and Bhava Dhara. Jnana Dhara is what you know, your knowledge. Karma Dhara is what you do. And Bhava Dhara is what you deeply want within. One Swami in Uttarakhand, he looked at me and he said, आप क्या जानते हैं क्या करते हैं उसमें हमको दिलचस्पी नहीं है, आपका भाव क्या है बताइए. I am not interested in what you know and what you do, but what you want within. So, a person who may be doing puja in the temple, his work is a very holy kind of work. He may be knowing Shastras, so his knowledge is a very refined kind of Vedantic knowledge. But his bhava is towards the world, that I will do this puja, then so much money will come from the devotees, then I will go and put a roof on my house and send my son to English medium school or IIT. Now, if this is the thought going on in his mind while doing the puja, so the karma and the jnana are connected with God, but the bhava is towards the world. And they say that he will get the world, he will not get God. Whereas, another person, I'll give you a real example, in a small village called Jairambati in Bengal. There was this, in a Ramakrishna Mission ashram, where Ma Sharda used to, in that place, is now an ashram. A person used to sweep that in front of the temple. And when he was very old, the Swami said, you need not do this, you have been doing it your whole life. You don't have to do it anymore, we'll send the money to you in your house. He said that when I was a kid, Ma Sharda was here, and she told me, you keep on doing this work, this is your worship. So I am not doing it for the money. I am doing it as worship. This is joy for me, so don't stop me from doing it. And it is a very beautiful ending. When he finally passed away, he had a vision of the Divine Mother and so on and so forth. Now you see, Karma Dhara, it's a very humble kind of work. Jnana Dhara, I don't think he had even passed class 10. But Bhava Dhara is so high. Bhava Dhara is this meaning. If you can associate deep meaning with some work, it immediately gives you much more happiness. Then even an ordinary bit of work gives you a lot of happiness. Any more questions? Yeah.
Pranam Swamiji.
Namaskar.
Swamiji, you said that we have to know what we truly are, that I'm not the body to travel the track to. So in meditation, sometimes we might have a glimpse of that, but in our day-to-day life, it is not my common experience. I mean,
True.
it is just something that I've read or I have a small experience of that. It is not something that I cling on to every time.
Yes.
So,
Right. 2 points here. Thank you very much. See, when I gave this talk, I had some hesitation. Any Vedantic book you take up, like Panchadashi, for example, which I have quoted, what they do normally is not the thing, not what I have done. What I have done is a little unwise here. What they do there is, first of all, they show you that you are something apart from your body and mind. Then they'll go on to the discussion of this Ananda Swarupa. So you'll see Panchadashi, I quoted from verses 9 and 10, isn't it? 8 and 9. The verse number 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7, they all go to show how you are something apart from body and mind. This has to be demonstrated first. And this is just the first step, to hear it and understand it. Then to be established in that, that's a long process. It's not all that easy. It's not so easy as, listening to beautiful chanting of Chidananda Rupa Shivoham, or matter of listening to one lecture. But it's a beginning. What we are doing is a beginning. So the correct procedure would have been to talk about how we are how I am apart from the body and mind. I'm the witness of the changes of the body and the mind. I'm consciousness. And that consciousness is Ananda Swarupa. So that was the development of thought in Panchadashi, which I skipped on purpose because of time limitations. And there's a process, they call it Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. This means hearing, systematic hearing, learning the Vedantic truth from a teacher. This means, so at the end of Shravana, what happens is you understand that the Vedanta teaches you are not the body and mind. You understand. But after that also questions, then doubts come. How am I not the body and mind? As you said, this is a perfect doubt that it does not seem to be so. In my day-to-day experience, I feel I am the body and mind. So that is the stage of manana, where you put up doubts about this Vedantic idea. How is this possible? And all these are reasoned out. At this level is a level of reasoning, vichara. At the end of manana, what happens is, not only you understand that the Vedanta is telling you are not the body and mind, now you are convinced, you don't have any more doubts. But even when you don't have any more doubts, it's still not experienced. You still feel that in day-to-day life it is still the same. I have understood this, I am convinced about it also to a great extent, but still it does not make a difference. I am not getting that bliss, I am not able to overcome my human limitations and weaknesses. So that is finally the stage of Nididhyasana, where you overcome obstructions to that knowledge, where deep and sustained meditation on what you have understood, what you are now convinced about, that you have to meditate and get stabilized in that. That is the stage of Nididhyasana. It's a lifetime's work. Swami Vivekananda says, tell yourself again and again, I am he, I am that, soham. Aham Brahmasmi. Tell yourself again and again, till it tingles with every drop of your blood. So it must become a process of de-hypnotization. We have identified ourselves with the body and mind so much, you have to let go. Letting go is a long process, and that process takes these two stages, Manana and Nididhyasana. What we did today was the first stage, Shravana, just the bare beginning of Shravana. One senior Swami in the Himalayas, Vedantic scholar, one of our Swamis went and asked him, and that Swami told me. He said, I asked this old monk, how do I know that I have got Brahmajnana, that I am the Ananda Swarupa, how do I know I am established in that? He says, just the way that you know now, you know that you are a man. You don't have to hold on to that idea, that I am a man, I am a Swami. You don't have to hold on to it. It's a fact for you. You don't forget it also. In that way, the day you know that you are Chidananda Rupa Shivoham, the day you know that, without any attempt to hold on to it also, it's so clear to you. That day you know that you have realized your true self. So it's a process. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Should we wrap up? Yeah, there's a question there.
Pranam Swamiji, my question is, as you explained about the Vedanta approach, that is not body and mind, but something beyond.
Yes.
I would like to narrate something. Understood this fact, what is your opinion about this situation? A person who stays within society,
yes,
he does have definitely the desires for the ice cream. He is working full day. As you said, as the desires increases, they might lead to misery.
Yes.
But still he does have. He has a vision. He equally does the good deeds. He contributes to the society, even needies and everybody. He is not detached from anything for any point of time. He also has the good vision and mission, and still he stays within and faces everything. Don't you think so? Is it beyond 10 power 20?
I don't know about that, but this person whom we talked about, this person, Manushananda, you see, notice, he's somewhat like what you are talking about. Young person with noble intentions, lot of capacity, lot of wealth, Now, say somebody, I don't know, Bill Gates is not somebody popular among computer engineers especially. I have seen some Swamis who are computer engineers, they can't stand the name of Windows, they are more into Linux and things like that. But still, somebody who is a multi-billionaire, who is doing a lot of social work, who is also young and healthy, it doesn't have to be Bill Gates, it has to be somebody who does that. It's a model for what you are talking about. So he get, definitely, that's, they say that it is the highest possible human happiness you can think about. And that happiness can be exceeded, they say, in higher locus, better locus. You can think about higher levels of happiness. All of that you can get when you move from Vishayananda to Bhajanananda. Yes. We'll close with that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji, for those inspiring words. Now I request Professor C. Balaji to present a memento to Swami Sarvapriyananda Ji Maharaj. I request our volunteer Bharadwaj to present a set of books to Swami Sarvapriyananda Ji as a token of gratitude. I request our volunteer Yashwant to present a set of books to Professor Tamban Nair as a token of gratitude. Feedback forms are being distributed by our volunteers. Please fill them. And if anyone is willing to join us as a volunteer, please tick in the appropriate box. Now I request our volunteer Shon to deliver the vote of thanks.
Dear friends, it was great to be a part of this beautiful evening at the ICSR. On behalf of VSC, I extend my thanks to my heartfelt thanks to our today's speaker, Swami Sarvapriyananda, who took the time out of his really very busy schedule to come here and deliver a lecture. This was really a very wonderful lecture, Swamiji, and we really felt blessed to listen to this. Then I would like to thank Professor Tamban Nair also for accepting our invitation and addressing the crowd. I would like to thank the Director of IIT Madras, Professor Bhaskar Ramamurthy, and Dean of Student, Professor Sivakumar, and the Dean's Office staff for their continuous support on the infrastructure and moral level for the VSC whenever needed. I thank the Dean of ICSR for providing this auditorium and CCE for video recording facility for the today's special lecture. Professor, I also want to thank Professor Anjan Chakravarti for providing us laptop using which we could write, we can demonstrate this lecture in the writing way. I thank the Ramakrishna Mat Mailapur for untiring support and our beloved Swami Atma Shraddhananda Ji Maharaj for being excellent teacher and mentor for the VSC. I also thank Professor C. Balaji for continuous guidance in all our VSC activities. I thank all the past and present VSC volunteers for joining hands in organizing all the VSC events and making them successful. Finally, many thanks to all the Swamijis and Brahmacharis from RK Mutt, all our dear friends, professors and other guests whose enthusiastic participation and presence in this today's function made this day memorable one. Thanks all.
Thank you, Shon. And at last, we shall conclude by this glorious evening with Shanti Mantra recital by our volunteers.
Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
I thanks everyone for attending this session. Thank you very much. Dhanyavad and Jai Hind.